Hello fellow cultivators, welcome to another video in the series of general build guide for Tale of Immortal. And previously we have ranked the 12 motion skills for the 6 martial arts and 6 spiritual roots. And so this video and the next video, so because I will make this into 2 videos, we will discuss about the 24 ultimate skills. So each martial arts / spiritual rules, we just call it elements from now on, will have 2 ultimates, therefore 12 elements, 24 skills. And because it doubled the amount of last video, so that's why it will be double as long if I make it into 1 video. Thus, we will separate it into 2. This video will talk about the 6 martial arts, the 12 skills. The next video we'll be talking about the 12 skills of the 6 spiritual rules. Okay? But at the beginning of this video, we will also spend a few minutes time to discuss about my standard. How do I, set this tier list? So this video will be a bit longer than the next one. So it is. So ultimate skills in this game are a bit different, a bit special, in the sense that even if you just learn them, you equip them, you cannot directly use them in the battles. Usually, you need to fulfill a precondition, and those preconditions are very interesting. Sometimes they are associated with the buff or debuff you can apply to the enemy or to apply to yourself with the LMB. Sometimes they are associated with the special skills and some special mechanism of those special skills. And sometimes they are associated with the special effect of when you detonate those buff and debuff and bring them to the table. And I do like this part because they are very good indicator of what the things you should be focusing on if you are playing this element. For example, lightning, one of the lightning ultimate are associated with lightning bolts, which is the key of all lightning builds. And similarly for finger, there's one finger ultimate which is associated with making enemy losing MP. And that's again the key of mana burn finger build. Okay, so they are good indicators. So look at your ultimates and try to find something that you ignored before, and maybe that's the key to make one build powerful. But also, since there are 2 ultimates, right? So the other possibility is that it is associated with something that's not so good if you are been playing this element. For example, again, let's again use finger. So finger, as I said, the key is to make enemy lose MP, and that's associated with one of the ultimate. The other ultimate are associated with the other buff. So buff and debuff usually correspond to 2 different playstyle in one build. So the correct or stronger playstyle is mana burn finger, but the other playstyle, then which is unsealed meridians, and that's the buff to yourself, and the other ultimate of finger is associated with this thing. So it's actually designed as a saving grace to make the unpopular or less powerful playstyle of this build better. So yeah, that's why I think ultimate is a very good part in this game, and they are designed very nicely. Now the thing is, there is this thing called combat expertise, which is a rewrite destiny. There are 5 different types. There is combat expertise bare hand for fist, palm, and finger, weapon for blade, spear, and sword. Then there's combat expertise earth, fire, and water, wood, as well as wind, lightning. So those 5 will, depending on what is it, allows you to directly use the ultimate of that element without fulfilling the preconditions most of the time. Because there are certain ones, even if it allows you to use it, it does not really have any effect. So yeah, keep that in your mind because we will use this as one of our standards. Now, think about this whole idea of, preconditions, special effects, and ultimates. So I would put most of the ultimate, try to put both of them into A, B, C in the middle. So consider A and B and C are similar in terms of power. Okay, so power here means basically the damage they do, or let's call it the most basic thing. What does the ultimate do? Doing damage. And as long as they belong to ABC, they are mostly doing its job properly. So do not feel bad if I put one of your favorite ultimate into C and the other one you don't like into A, because A and B and C power-wise they are similar, so consider them the same thing. How do I distinguish A and B and C? So one thing to look at is what other things bring to the table. So if it actually makes this build much better with this ultimate than without ultimate, bring something special to the table and make this build completely different, one step higher, then they belong to A. And usually also another thing to look at is how easy it can trigger. So easier to trigger ones, goes up like to A. And now if it's not that easy to trigger, or it feels like, okay, it does not bring so much change to this build, then usually it goes to C. Okay, so difficult to trigger and does not have anything special. Now, what makes them into B then? So on top of C, if it does not bring the whole thing much better, however, it has this niche use that it implements some part of the build, and also, or it's like if you are using some other builds, you feel like, okay, I need to have this ultimate just for that one thing. I will take combat expertise for it. Then it goes to B. So niche use. So as you can see, A and B and C are not that much different again. And finally, what's S and what is D? So S are the ones which are usually harder to fulfill, or sometimes they can be good, easy to fulfill. But the main point of this is that they are so good. The effects they bring are so good that they are generally good for many other builds. Not only for that element itself. Like, I will take combat expertise just for this ultimate skill. Then it's to the S. And D, either they are like the ones I mentioned before, that even if you use combat expertise, still have no effect unless you fulfill preconditions, which are also very hard to fulfill. Or it's like there are something really problematic with it, like you make you feel like, no, this is not a good design at all. It's wrong. Or it's just so mediocre you can't find anything good about it. Then it's the D tier. Okay, so that's already quite long, more than 7 minutes. Oh god, that's why it had to be 2 videos. So let's directly start with the first martial art, Blade. We will start with the first Blade ultimate, Overbearing Blade. And so first, what does it do? Let's directly use it. And just a reminder, this character has all the combat expertise. That's why I can directly use all the ultimate directly. So otherwise you need actually fulfilled preconditions. So it summons this giant blade thing around you. You can walk around and this goes around you and it deals damage to the enemy. So if you have the sub skill to increase the rotating speed of this one, it will make it even more deadlier, so doubles its damage, of course. So what other thing does it do? It makes you run faster, and also it makes you more tankier because you 50% of the damage taken less. So in general, it's very good. That's things about many ultimate. When you look at itself, it does good damage, and when you combine, especially when you combine it with some sub skills, it makes the damage even higher. And also there are always a few effects in the sub skills make this ultimate quite good in general for your build. But now we have to consider it more objectively. Does it bring something really good to the table, like make any blade build much better? I would say, depending on how you define much better. If you say, oh, I'm 2 times tankier, isn't it much better? It is, but that is more something like you are adding zeros behind a 1, but not bringing a 1 to the table. So I wouldn't call this thing much better. That makes it A. And especially now when we consider the second condition, which is how easy can you trigger the preconditions, it is very, very difficult. So in order to trigger this thing, you need the execute effect. You need to execute 9 people. And to execute, this is associated with ruthless buff to blade build. So in general, for blade build, you want to use blood blade and the associated 3 special skills because they are better ones. Not only blood blade effect is better, ruthless is bad. We'll explain why it's bad later. But also, blood blade special skills can reach 0 cooldown. Well, ruthless special skills cannot reach 0 cooldown, so they are already worse. So you don't want to use a Ruthless martial skill. And also now question comes, what is the execute effect? Basically, when the enemy's HP is below the threshold and you deal blade damage to it, then it will be executed. The problem is, when you deal blade damage to them, because those threshold is so low, they are directly killed by your blade damage. So they won't be considered as executed. So you will not gain this overbearing effect. So you can never trigger this thing almost. Not only that is just thing there, but also in general, any type of this condition that is you need to kill thing, which means you can only fulfill this thing if you kill some mobs. And in this game, when you deal with boss, the boss directly appears. So you cannot use your ultimate without combat expertise. Let's say, even if you manage to execute people, which is already impossible, okay? Now, second, boss can summon mobs, for sure. That's why you can still trigger them. The problem is, that will take time. So, any type of ultimate precondition are associated with killing mobs, we consider them as not easy. Okay, just remember this thing. And because this is connected with execute effect, it will be really difficult. And that really brings this thing down. And since it has no special things bring to the table, very hard to trigger, and there's no niche use, so C tier. Sorry to say C tier. I know it's tried to make some ruthless, blade build better, but it does not do its job. Demon Fury Blade, and this ultimate is a very, very special one. And so what is it special about? It does not directly do any damage. It's strange, but it transforms you. So, for example, right now I am supposed to have this LMB, and this is my RMB. But the moment I use this ultimate, my LMB becomes this thing. It's almost like one of the RMB's silver. And my RMB, just pay attention. You see that thing? Yeah, that is the RMB. So it looks exactly like the blood slash effect from single, this thing. So if I apply this and trigger this, you can see the blood flash effect to it, right? And it has the same animation, except it's stronger. These RMBs and LB are actually quite strong. And also it increases your attack damage and receive the damage less. If you have sub-skills, it basically doubles your damage and 60% damage reduction. So it makes you very powerful. It's not bad, especially in early game. So in early game, when you are dealing with, for example, if you are meeting with Realm 1 and 2 Blade NPCs, like when you are entering a sect, you see a Blade NPC who somehow has the ultimate and chi refining, then it's probably a lose because this ultimate is so strong for them. And so early game is quite powerful, but late game is not anymore. And the reason is pretty simple, because those cooldown reduction modifiers your character can have does not apply to this once you transform your LMB and RMB. So especially for blade build, you can achieve 0 cooldown special skills. And if you use your ultimate, you lose 0 cooldown, you lost everything. So it is actually bad in late game. So now think about it. Does it do its job? It does. And is it easy to trigger? Yes, it is easy to trigger. Anyone can trigger this as long as their HP is below 35%. You don't even need to be blade build. So that actually brings another thing to the table, which, okay, it actually have nothing to do with it trigger if you actually want to use it, but I will put it here. So this thing is very, very special because it transforms the thing. And so if you have seen one of my videos, it's called Demon Blade, Dragon Spear, or just simply the Spear Build Guide, you will see that it's actually a really good ultimate for Spear build. Because once you transform it, even though your RMB and LB change, but they inherit sub-skills from those two, RMB and RMB itself. And for Spear, if you play it properly, you got infinite recharge when you switch on Arcane Bird. And in that case, you got 0 cooldown special skill for Spear. And it's so powerful, it's easy to achieve. You don't need all that jazz of changing your down mine, etc. You directly reach 0 cooldown special skill. And because this very niche, yet very, very powerful use, So this thing have so many drawbacks, etc. will still stays in B tier. I wouldn't put it into A tier because it does not really bring something onto the table for blade build. Does not really make blade so powerful. And also it's not S tier because it does make spear build good, but everyone else you wouldn't think of using this ultimate. Okay. Okay, we have showcased the two blade ultimate. And yeah, forgot to mention, there are two things I forgot to mention there. So one thing is for this blade skill which I put into C, there is indeed a tradition effect which makes it better at Transcendent. Well, for the following ones, if there is such a thing, it does make me feel like to bring it up a bit more. However, in this case, I still think it does not bring something special to the table that niche use or in general makes it so much higher. It comes to A. So sadly, it belongs to C. That does not mean to say that it is bad damage-wise. In fact, it's still quite powerful. So consider A and B and C the same thing if you feel bad for this skill. And the second thing I want to say is that I will try to showcase most of the ultimate skill in these two videos, but some of them might not completely showcase it. And if you want to see in general how things looks like without knowing what's more deeper mechanism in it, you're welcome to check out the two just skill showcase videos for martial arts and spiritual rules in my channel. It is in this exactly same playlist as well. So just keep that in mind. And let's put this guy into B. So again, this guy is very special. Sometimes I feel like if this is a 2D tier list, there is another dimension for very special ones, then this one should belong to there rather than any of the things here. Dragon Spear Formation. And so this one, so what does it do? You can direct cast it if you have the combat expertise. So this big area, it drops a lot of spear from the sky and deals damage to the enemy. It is decent damage, not very high, not very low neither. And there are sub skills make more spears dropping from the ground, from the sky, and also drag the enemy into it. Also makes enemy inside its formation walk slower and also deal less damage. So all of this makes it decent. It does what it's supposed to do. It's standard, okay? And standard does not sound so good because now question is, does it bring anything specially to the table? No. So as a spear build, this thing I don't think it makes the spear build so much better. That makes it one step higher. But it does have its niche use, and also it's very easy to trigger. So how does it trigger? Every time you trigger true dragon possession, basically any type of 3 dragon riding special skills, you leave a spear shadow on the ground, and you need to have 6 stacks. So basically you need to use this guy 6 times. And you start with 3 times directly, okay? 1, 2, 3. Oh, 3. So now you can see there are quite a few spear shadows on the ground, okay? And once then when you use this thing, spear shadow disappears, and then you drop more. So that's how it works in general. Now, easy to trigger, which is good, bring them a little bit up. The niche use is actually very strange thing. So those spear shadows on the ground, when I use this thing, okay, like this, these 2 spear shadows, they consider as friendly units. So if you have the sub-skill in your sutra and in your guide to recover HP MP with friendly units, then yeah, you got HP and MP recovery. Especially once you use this thing dies. And those sub-skills when friendly units die bring you a lot of HP and MP. And for spear build, one of the problems is really they don't really have a good MP recovery rate. And this can act as a pretty good way for you to recover MP, if that is the thing. Especially if you're using a dragon hamlet that you wasted 5 destinies on dragon girl and you don't have much way to recover HP, and this acts a very good thing. So that is niche use, and also it's very easy to trigger, so I would put it into the standard B tier. Hell Spear. And this spear ultimate is linked with Break Armor. So the other spear ultimate is linked with the more powerful spear build, basically. Dragon Riding, Xing Xing Xing, is very strong. Break Armor is the debuff spear deals with, and it's the worst one, let's say. The three special skill are not as powerful as the Dragon Rising one. And this ultimate, the design idea is probably makes that the less powerful spear build better. But does it do that job properly? Not really. But does it do its normal job properly, that it do damage? Yes. So it summons a lot of spear like this, and each of spear do damage to the enemy, so that is there, right? It does its normal job. And of course there are also sub skills which makes, bringing more spears, I guess, makes the enemy within this run slower and also hits back. So it does its thing. But if it's just like that, it's C tier, and especially because the trick condition is not that easy to fulfill. You need to kill enemies which inflict with break armor. And as I mentioned before, that if the trick condition is to kill enemies, that means it's not that easy to trigger it when you are facing a boss. So that is a problem. Now that makes it almost feel like C tier, right? C tier, C tier. But there are two things which brings this thing back to the table. One is that it has this niche use that for the duration of this ultimate skill, look at the sub skill there. The cooldown of your martial skill, martial/spiritual, they are the same thing in everywhere in the game apart from Destiny. Minus 40%. So basically, your martial skill, at this time, you have to use the Nether Feather effect. No, stop it. Okay, your martial skill initially was like this. Okay, and now I'm using this. You can see that my martial skill are faster. So all the tornadoes are much more better. And this is because my martial skill cooldown reduced 40%. And if you want to use a build which really rely on your martial skill damage and how fast your martial skill is, for example, like this, you might want to take this ultimate. Except there is a better option. But this it does its niche use, brings this into the table. And if you want to know what kind of build relying on martial arts or spiritual arts LMBs, check my how fast is the LMB you can reach that video. It's in the same playlist of this skill, general skill guide. And if that is only thing, yeah, it already brings to the B because that is a niche use. It is powerful. But if, as I mentioned, there is a better option. But another thing of this one is the set effect, the tradition set effect at Transcendent. One of them does make this guy a few times better because not only to increase the damage of the spear, but also increase how much spear it summons. So basically there are more spear coming, and there are each of them deals more damage. So it makes this actually much better, like much better. And also, while you are using this thing, it also not only makes your spear faster, right? Attack faster, but also with that tradition effect, it just in general overhauls your spear build. So that sort of brings it back to B tier, even though I would put it a bit worst part of the B tier. Okay, back to the tier list. So we talked about two spear ones, and that's one thing about the two spear ones. They look so similar. It's so hard to distinguish which one is which. And if I recall correctly, this one is spear formation, and this B, and this one is self spear. This also B, so that's good. Even if I make mistake for two of them, they belong to the same tier. And yeah, so the next one we'll talk about sword, those two, and they are actually quite similar to the two spear ones, except both are a bit better. So, a bit better. That does not mean that they will be a better tier. You will see. What do I mean by that? But let's back to this two spear thing. Just like I mentioned before. So this blade one become better and transcendent, and this spear one also become better and transcendent. And to be honest, this I would say somewhere between B and C, because it's the one niche thing it brings to the table is the martial skill cooldown, and yeah, The other thing I said it's a transcendent effect, but then this one also has a steady effect, but you don't see. So you might feel like it's unfair for this guy and a bit too much for this guy, but again, A, B, C are the same. Skyfall Sword. And this is one weird ultimate. So first of all, let's try to use it with combat expertise without using the trigger conditions. Because this is the first case we meet in this case. So we use R. One sword falling from sky and that's it. It does nothing. And this is because this is one of the types that if you directly use it with combat expertise, rather than properly fulfill the precondition, it does not really work. So this is an example of what I mentioned in the beginning of the video. And as I mentioned, usually that makes you feel like it's not even doing its job. That's it here, right? But this ultimate is different. It's very, very different. So because of this special thing, let's directly look at what's the precondition, how to use it. So, and also because there is one thing I want to clarify because that confuses many new players. What is written here for the duration of emotion skill, one stack of Sword Shadow is triggered every 5 seconds, and you can use it when there are 5 stacks. Make you almost feel like if I'm using a durational motion skill, I use it, I generate 1, and 5 seconds later, it will leave another one. So make you feel like, okay, I need to, in my motion skill for 25 seconds, so I should increase the duration of my motion skill, right? Actually, not really the case, because the next time you use it again, you generate a Sword Shadow again. So the correct way to make the trigger condition is use your motion skill as frequently as possible, and you can do this because you are using a sword build. What's the specialty about sword build? You have 0 cooldown motion skill and special skill if you build your build correctly. Check out my sword build guide, it's too much to say. Anyway, for example, we are using a sword slash martial skill combined with Gale Sword special skill combined with a finger motion skill, and I have the correct mind skill with me. So, which means if I use this incorrectly, I have almost 0 cooldown motion skill and just see how much I left this thing on the ground. And now I use my motion ultimate, not only see how much it can do more damage about, but also check out my character. So what's the difference there? I switch on this sword dropping from the ground, and my character is invincible. Look at this egg-like thing on myself. I am invincible. Literally invincible. Nothing can do damage to me, okay? And that's because the sub-skill here, for every time a Sword Shadow is triggered, you receive invincible for 1.2 seconds. Oh, now invincible finally disappears. And I can almost reuse thing again. So imagine during this ultimate, instead of standing there doing nothing, I'm again still using my motion skill and special skills all the time. I can immediately now use this ultimate again and become invincible again. So with the correct setup, water sword, finger sword, everything, you are invincible all the time with this ultimate. It's so powerful. It really brings the sword build onto another level. So that's exactly what I meant by this ultimate brings the entire build much better. So yeah, definitely A tier. To be honest, power wise I would say it's S tier or even better. The only problem is in order to make it to use rather than doing nothing like this, you need to have motion skill and near 0 cooldown, and that can only be done if you're using a sword build. So it is limited use for sword build. That's why it's down to A tier. Divinity Sword. And you might have noticed the Skyfall Sword feels very similar to the spear, the dragon spear formation. Every time you use motion skill in that case, and for the spear, use your special skill spear, you leave whatever spear shadow, sword shadow on the ground, and then you ultimately triggers it and deals damage. Difference, of course, there are there, but we won't mention it again. Well, Divinity Sword is very similar to Hell Spear as well. So again, the trigger condition, you kill people with a debuff, which is bleed in this case. and which means they are hard to trigger. You know, you need to kill mobs. However, it is still better than the Hell Spear in the sense that Hell Spear associated with Break Armor, which is really the bad spear build. This one is Bleed. Bleed with Shadowless Sword. It is even stronger than Sword Slash with Gale Sword. So yeah, you want to use the sword with bleed effect anyway. So in that sense, that you just need to kill mobs in order to trigger it. You just need to kill mobs because you anyways want to use sword martial skill with bleed effect. And so it is not that hard to trigger. So B-ish, not going to C. And just like Hellspear, go back to C and then bring it back to B. Again, these ultimates have very similar. It's really just the same, make you feel like the developer team might have first designed the two sword skill, and then made the two spear ultimate skill as the worst version. Yes, remember in Hellspear we mentioned that the one niche thing it can do is to increase your martial skill speed 40%, This one is the better one, because this one will make your martial skill cooldown 50% less, so you are attacking even faster with this ultimate skill. And talking this long, we haven't even used this. So, we use this, we summon this guy and deals a lot of damage, deal a lot of support, and during this time our sword is faster. And you can sort of see that, right? Once it's finished, our LMB is slower. So, it's the same thing. So basically, if you are doing the LMB type of build, again, check out that video. I feel that is one of my most underrated videos because I did a lot of tests and everything, and nobody really watches it. Even though everyone loves LMB, well, I don't understand why. But anyway, if you want a fast attack, martial skill, spiritual skill attack, you might want, apart from building a lot of mind skills and everything, this ultimate is one good choice. And if that is the build you want to achieve, you will take Combat Expertise Weapon just for this ultimate. Of course, you can also go for Health Spear, it's just a little bit less, effective. But yeah, so this one, it does its job, deals decent damage, and has this niche use, not that hard to trigger, so standard B tier, I would say. Alright, let's welcome our first tier A skill, sorry. What am I saying? And this one again to B. So we are very symmetric. 1A, 1C, 4Bs. And so I mentioned that ABC should be about same power level, but actually this guy, the Skyfall Sword, if just looking at raw power level, it is quite strong because fully invincible makes you feel like they are much stronger than everything else that it should belong to S tier. But as I mentioned, there's one thing about this that it is only good if you're using a sword build, because that's the only condition you can make so many motion skills to get so many sword shadows. And without that thing, even if you have combat expertise, you won't be able to use this. Then it goes to D. So in that sense, it really limits it. Come to A, so it's really good, bring sword build to another level, but that's it. And also, it's not like sword build cannot live without it. You can still use a fire sword easily without this motion, the ultimate skill. So I think A tier, it is where it belongs. Overload Shield. Without too much crap, let's directly say it. This is the S tier. And if you have watched my video about how to improve damage, you already know why this is S tier. Because this is associated with the Feast Divine power, which have the sub-skill to increase your critical damage every time you stun an enemy. And combined with this ultimate, combined with Feast Divine power, you increase your critical damage to maximum very fast. So every time you crit, which is not that hard if you have Murder Thrust or if you have a Jiuchen talent, then you are doing 5 times damage, rather than 1.2 times damage, which is usually the case in Chaos. And yeah, that's a lot of damage increase. And it is so good, it's one of the better ways to improve damage. So that is really the main reason why this guy goes to S tier, because of that, this whole set of crit build set with 50 Y power. You can use this ultimate for many different builds. And yeah, I'm talking about like when I'm using Wind Sword, when I'm using Spear build, I will especially take combat expertise bare hand just to use this ultimate. And also, since if I'm using some other, so any builds that I do not want to use a fire secret menu, like for example, maybe I want to use wind, or maybe I want to use earth. I want their own secret menu just because I think they are more useful, or I want their, 4 set transition set effect. But divine power is empty there, then I will use a 50 divine power with this ultimate. That usually is a better option. It's really that good. Like, yeah. So that's why it belongs to S tier. But now let's talk about this ultimate itself. Because even without everything, without that thing, this ultimate it is still very, very good. And it's a really good example of a good ultimate. So when I use this thing, it summons a lot of these, shield shadows around me, right? They do damage, they stun enemy, as I mentioned before. But also, all those shield shadows, they can block projectiles towards you. Alright, so it is safe. It makes you safe. It stuns the enemy, again makes you safe. And also by stunning, it's increasing critical damage, so improve your damage. And itself is doing damage. So it's good in many different ways. Already, and not yet finished. Not only when you hit enemy, stun the enemy, but also you will do it for the duration, you deal more damage with enemies with stun. So it improves damage in that way as well, and you receive shield every second. It just puts the two biggest teams, shield and stun of this build together in such a nice way. And I'm not even finished. How do you trigger this thing? It's easy to trigger. You detonate your shield 2 times and you can use it. 2 times. Just basically 2 RMBs. And Healbreaker is so-called Fist Detour build uses special skill, but that is not the only special skill that detonate your shield, because there are 3 Fist special skills that detonate shield. Any of them can use this ultimate and fulfill the conditions. And one minor thing that usually people don't even mention about, fulfilling conditions of this ultimate. Let's just use this. This leaves this shield shadow, not the one there, but this thing on the ground. And even this thing can block projectiles for you. Like we mentioned before, the sword shadows and spear shadows of those alternates, right? Spear shadows still okay, considered as a friendly unit, can bring some HP recovery for you. And this guy, not only is considered as a friendly unit, so it will bring you HP and MP recovery if you have a few of them on the ground, but also they can block projectiles for you. So if you have like this, 3 of them, and you stand behind of them, people cannot damage you. It can block it for 20 times. Like, even the most minor thing of this ultimate is quite useful. It's just so perfect. Yeah, S tier. The Titan Fist, it's a bit strange. So, I mentioned that usually the ultimate, one of them associated is the good build, just like the previous one, Overlord Fist. How do you trigger it? You detonate shield, and Healbreaker is the best build in the game. And then normally the other ultimate is connected to either the other buff debuff. In the Fist case, which is still quite powerful, which is Bone Fracture. But somehow this ultimate is not connected to Bone Fracture, and makes you feel like, okay, maybe they know Bone Fracture and Forever Stun is also powerful. So maybe they just add something strange. So yeah, it has a weird trigger condition. So you need to get hit. So every time you get hit, you receive damage, you receive a stack of boiling blood, and when you get hit 50 times, then you can use this skill. Well, good thing is, so this condition is hard to trigger, as you can know. The good thing is, even if without triggering it by combat expertise, it works. So it works. So there are fists coming out from you. It's a bit like the overbearing blade, right? You are doing damage to something around you and you are walking faster, etc. There are some effects to you, and also you can receive HP back during this period, because makes sense, right? You need to use it, you need to get hit to use it, so you will lose HP. So once you use it, you get HP back. Makes you feel like, okay, yeah, makes sense. So it works properly, and it brings a lot of things, but not really make these things super powerful. Does it really have these niche use? Maybe not. Is it that easy to trigger? Also, not really. I mean, you might think 50 times, that's very easy, right? A mob can hit me many times. That's true, except you don't need to use the ultimate when you're dealing with mobs, and when you're dealing boss, again, don't have that many mobs unless the boss summon it, and it shall take time. And for bossing kills, they are the typical time things which hit not that frequent, but hit very hard. Which means if you got hit by boss 50 times, you are probably already died, 30 times. So that's a exaggeration, but so it's not that easy to trigger, but at least it works. So I would say it's good, it's useful, it's just like the overbearing blade. It's C tier. Don't think C tier as low. C tier power-wise similar as A tier. So welcome to number 1 S tier, the one king, and the 1 C tier. As I mentioned, these two are pretty similar in my opinion. The only difference is there's no tradition effect makes this guy stronger. So I guess C belongs, this one still. Should I make this in the order that I think they are, which one is more powerful? Maybe I should make it like this. I mean, again, this guy is so special. I don't know where to put it. But the Dragon Spear Demon Blade build is quite powerful, so maybe it belongs to here. So yeah, consider the end of B tier and beginning of C tier the same thing. Eternal Rest Palm. So this ultimate, it is good. So let's see what does it do. We directly use it, and you see that there are 5,400 damage each time it was palm shadow to it, and sometimes you can see some other 6,000 something. That's because of the palm wind it generates. Okay, so yeah, and how many this palm shadows? 264. And now once it's finished, I can almost immediately use it again. It's lasting really long, and there are a lot of palm attacks. So it is good damage-wise already. It is one of the better damage-wise. Okay, so that is there. So we are already in the C and B. Now, what other thing does it bring to the table? So it, as I mentioned before, it generates palm wind. Not only it generates palm wind under the target, but also it can generate palm wind under you. So if you are getting close to the enemy will for surely hit by palm wind. And palm wind is this mechanism which is connected to internal strands palm instead of internal injury. And palm is a really weird build that the whole build it's more tailored towards internal strands, palm wind side. That's what I would say, because the zero cooldown oceanic palm is internal strands one, and also the rainbow palm, which get really powerful at transcendent set effect, is also internal strands one. And yeah, the problem is palm are so complete about palm wind, but palm wind itself is not that strong. Its damage wise is not bad, especially once you have transcendent set effect with super palm wind. It's very powerful, very big powerful. The only problem is you have to get in close to the enemy, and because palm wind mostly are generated under you, and yeah, so the palm problem is you are very easy to die, and when you need to get close to the enemy to use palm wind, etc. So that problem is still there. But then you see that because this once you use this, it directly generates palm wind underneath target, so make you can safely somewhere farther away. You might feel like, but that wasted my palm wind under me, right? But super palm wind, once it's triggered at transcendent, it's really big, so you can still hit the enemy. And it might even good to use actually set effect with this palm ultimate for other builds just to have this super palm wind being that good. It is not really recommended, but it is a thing you can do. You can call it a niche use. So that's secured B tier already, but in general, I feel this one does make palm build in generally better. Because palm build need palm wind, and this way brings you a lot of palm wind, and it feels much better to use. And how easy you can trigger it? Let's see this. It's very easy to trigger. You need to use perfect charge 3 times. And what is perfectly charged? So 4 out of 6 special skills for palm have this charging mechanism. Notice there is a blue bar here, okay? And then look at my character. So if you release your thing, you see there's a perfect coming out of my character, and that is a perfectly charged. It is really easy. Basically, every single your charge skill will be a perfect charge. And you just need to use your special skill 3 times. That's very easy to use. You don't need combat expertise for it. However, which is not really however because it is a plus for it, perfect charge also have the thing to increase skill power 30%. Okay? And if you still remember how much damage number this ultimate does, now I'm using perfectly charged. And look at what its damage number it does to the enemy now. It's much more. It's almost double. So yeah, perfectly charged works for this ultimate if you are using your special skill perfectly charged at the same time. That again brings even more damage to this ultimate. This damage deals really a lot of damage, and it so fits very well into the palm system. So I would use this ultimate when I'm using palm. So in that sense, I would actually bring this ultimate to A tier. Did we just talk about an A tier palm ultimate? And here we go, our first D tier palm ultimate. Here we go. So D tier, which means it's not even doing its own thing, its own job properly. So the main problem, actually, I would directly show you. So I have the ultimate. I use R. See, nothing happens apart from there are some palm wind generated up below me. So yeah, it does have that thing that generates palm wind below me. But that's it. It has nothing else. And again, you might be thinking, yeah, but that's the same thing with Skyfall Sword, but you told me that was A tier, that was good. True, because Skyfall Sword is really easy to trigger as a sword user. Now look at how do you trigger this thing. Internal injury, okay, good, right? That's a very good debuff. Now you have to kill enemies with internal injury. So still okay, I mean, how much big deal is that? I can just kill the enemy. Now the thing is, the effect of this ultimate really depending on how much enemy you kill. If you kill 10 mobs on the ground, let's say 10 mobs die here, 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 they leave 10 demonic mark on the ground, and when I use this thing, they will, things will fall from the sky. If you want to see this, go to see the martial skill showcase video, because I do not want to kill mobs to use this guy again. And then it does damage. So it's just so hard to trigger. Not only that, you see that you cannot make all the mobs die at the same place, right? And even for some reason you manage to do that. You have to wait till the boss comes to the same place, and then you use this thing, then all the palm skill will hit the boss. Because otherwise, you won't be able to let all this damage to deal to the boss. So it just does not work. It just doesn't work. It's so hard to trigger, it just doesn't work. So that's why it's just D tier. The next one, palm, we have talked about this. I like this skill. It's high damage, and I like palm wind palm. It's one of those things that people usually don't use. I mean, I think palm is the least used element out of all the 12, because I think I've seen this one poll in the Tale of Immortal official Discord, and nobody loves palm, but I like it. I especially like the not so powerful one. So internal injury and the true damage palm is stronger than the internal stress or palm wind build, but palm wind builds make me feel powerful. I will put it here. Nobody can convince me otherwise. And I think this ultimately makes palm build better. And yeah, it goes to D. So we got another symmetry, S, C, and we have D and A for fifth and palm. I like this symmetric image. Wow, we are almost finishing, and we have the 2 finger ultimate left. And did you remember we just talked about this one D tier ultimate called Demonic Mark Palm? It's because when you use the ultimate without triggering the precondition, even with combat expertise, it doesn't work. So spoilers alert, both finger ultimates are like that. But do they belong to D tier? Let's see. So let's first look at this one, Spiritual Burst Finger. So how do you trigger it? No, we'll talk about trigger condition because that's important. So basically, when you make enemy lose MP, you receive a stack of Spiritual Burst. You need 10 stacks to use it. Of course, you want more stacks before you use this ultimate because the damage of this ultimate scales with how many stacks. That's why if you are using it without any stacks, directly use combat expertise, it deals 0 damage. And how much damage does it do? It feels not that much, 95 each stack, even if you have the sub-skills. Each stack increase 1,531. Oh, it feels like, okay, that is not that bad, right? 1.5k, if you have 30, that gives you 45k. 45k, feels not bad. It's low, yes, but actually it is true damage, so yeah, it is pretty good. I can tell you it is pretty good. It's true damage. And yeah, so true damage means that if you use this ultimate against NPCs, you probably one-shot kills them, just like Hillbreaker, even with NPCs which are higher realm than you. Only issue is, well, it's just for NPCs. And the damage is not high enough to justify it in Chaos. So this is the part where it really struggles me to put it in the tier. So if you are playing non-Chaos, things like, I don't know, Hard, Hell, Nightmare, actually don't know the name of the difficulties below Chaos because I don't play them. Then in those difficulties, the enemy, even including boss, their HP is so low. Many times when you use this ultimate, it one-shots the enemy. So you might find somewhere on the internet saying this is the best ultimate, it one-shots everything, which is not wrong, except everything in my video and which I believe this game is supposed to be played is Chaos. So my standard is always based on Chaos. If you're not playing Chaos, you probably don't even need to watch any of my build guide because you don't need those. So in the standard of Chaos, this one do not do enough damage. So it's not really good enough to justify it. So that makes you feel like if it's hard to trigger, it's not even doing enough damage, shouldn't it be D tier? Well, not really, because it's actually very easy to trigger if you're playing Finger correctly. So in order to use the guy, you need to make enemy lose MP, right? And the more powerful Finger build is Mana Burn Finger. So you use Inner Emptiness Martial Skill, and you use this thing called Void Spirit Blast. And you put Inner Emptiness to the enemy, and then you use your RMP once, just once. 30 stack, that's there. So it's really easy to trigger. One special skill. And we use this thing, it's actually doing a lot of damage. So it's not 45k, but 819k. I don't really understand this, probably because this number will be multiplied by some kind of damage modifiers, etc. But it is strong. it is pretty strong. And after using this, because this ultimate have the thing when for every enemy, I don't even know what is the thing, but it will again brings me 80 back. So if I use it now, you see it's less damage. Okay, so yeah, the damage of this really depending on how much stacks of this you have. So make sure that you, it is a problem of showcasing with the transcendent characters. You know, this thing always appears. Again, use this once, get 30 stacks, and then use this thing. If you have low difficulties, you one-shot the enemy. If you have high difficulties, it's still some damage. So it's very easy to trigger. It does some damage, not really enough to justify in chaos for most enemies, but it's good to kill NPCs. So you see that it does not really fall into the standard thing I usually say. That's why it's hard for me to make this thing. So I would say it belongs to D tier because the damage is too low. So if I'm playing a Mana-Born Finger, I won't use its ultimate. That's why it's D tier. Because I will use probably some other ultimate like Feast, for example. Okay, before we talk about Divine Pulse Finger, there are two things. One, I was wrong about this. Just now I said, oh, I won't use that ultimate if I'm using Mana-Born Finger, I will use Feast. No, I won't use Feast because everything about Finger build is Finger Divine Power, so you won't use Feast Divine Power, therefore there's no point to use that Feast ultimate. So that was wrong. Use some other one. Now, the second thing about this ultimate, so if you check my Finger build guide video, it will talk about there is a bug within this ultimate that it is unusable. So that bug was fixed, okay? A few batches back before the official version was out, it was fixed. So now it is usable, and there's another video in my channel which is literally called Mana-Born Finger, you know, the most underrated build in this game, which is, I still believe it's true because I don't see many people talk about a Finger build, even though it's one of the most strongest build in the entire game. Anyway, so in that one, I mentioned that this one is fixed. So in that sense that it's not D tier anymore because it's actually not that hard to trigger it. But let's see, what does it do? You still have the same thing. If you do not fulfill the precondition, you use it with combat expertise, it does nothing. So how do you fulfill it? You need to apply sealed meridians to the enemy. And every time you apply it, you get one stack of purse, okay? Then you need 10 stack or to use it. If you do not have combat expertise, if you have combat expertise, as long as you have some stack, you can use it and it has effect. 12 stacks make it better. Now, one thing is how do you apply sealed meridians? So you need to have a martial skill finger with unsealed meridians, so the buff one, so the lesser powerful one. The more powerful one is the Mana-Born Finger with inner emptiness. So that's what I'm saying. This ultimate was designed to improve the experience of the less powerful playstyle of finger, and then with a special skill associated with unsealed meridians, then all the three special skills associated with that, I think, have this thing that there's a chance to put sealed meridians on enemy. Sealed meridian is a debuff to the enemy that makes them cannot cast any skills, but that is only works for NPCs. So Finger is really good at dealing with NPCs, but this has no use on bosses. So makes you feel like, okay, it's not that great, right? And how easy can this be triggered now since the bug is fixed? It's still not that easy. So apply this, use this thing, it was triggered once. So you can see this pulse here, right? And use it again, another pulse. So there is still an internal clock somewhere of this, because the chance how much this can be triggered, it should already generate much more pulses already. So it definitely has internal clock, and I also mentioned in that video as well that it's not applying it correctly. Previously the bug is literally that without the debuff vanishing, you cannot even generate another pulse, but now that was fixed. But I think there are still a few second debuffs there. No, not you again. Not you again. So you can see all those pulses, right? Now when I switch on this, and then I can move this thing around and deal damage to the enemy. By the way, yourself can now get into your invisible mode with the finger motion skill, and this still does damage to enemy. You can also see that enemy is losing MP, right? So that is actually very powerful thing, because with finger divine power, every time you make enemy lose MP, you increase your attack. So yeah, so this thing, because of make enemy lose MP thing, it actually makes sealed meridian build of finger much stronger, and I really love this part. Because I feel like it makes this build available again, and that is a great thing. I think it's very nice design and very nice intentions. The only problem is that it's still not working perfectly. I mean, it's less visible with this RMB, but there is another more powerful single RMB with Sealed Meridians, which is Sealed Blast or something, that can reach 0 cooldown special skill. And imagine that thing, 0 cooldown, how fast you can apply the Sealed Meridian, how fast you can generate 12 pulses. If it works like that, then with this thing it's become much more powerful. And I would think that will be so much better. Except right now it is not so much better. I feel this is really pity. But still, this thing works now and it deals decent damage. It actually brings the build of Unsealed Meridians finger build, to another level, because the fact that it makes enemy losing MP makes it now works with finger divine power. And yeah, so I think this belongs to A tier. It's not really that convincing because it's still not that strong. Like if you compare this with Skyfall Sword, it's definitely not as strong as Skyfall Sword. The thing is, I feel like if they have fixed the thing with no internal cooldown, it's as powerful as Skyward. So it's somewhat between A and B tier, but I will probably put it into A tier. And here we go for the final two ultimate in this video. So this one, you see that both of two are so hard for me to put them into this tier list. Like, if as what I mentioned in the descriptions, it should be like this, and I like this image bit better because they are very symmetric. It's so symmetric that I feel like I'm just going to stay with this one. Now, I will put this guy to here to make them a bit even more symmetric. Now, of course, as I mentioned, it's hard to put this, like, both are not that easy to trigger. So, but then, just like this one makes, it's also hard to trigger, like you can't use it without fulfill the precondition, but it brings sword build so much better. Now, this one is basically add one power level to the already powerful sword build. This one does not really bring anything better to the already powerful mana burn finger build. That's why it goes to C, because it does not add things. And this one, it adds things to the originally not so powerful, underrated, unsealed Meridian finger build. And it actually brings life to it. It makes that build can also enjoy the finger divine power, the attack increase, everything. So it's like a safe, in Chinese we call this guy putting flowers on top of already something nice silk. And this one will be like giving out, how to say, fire, amber in a snow day. So you really need this guy. So that's why I think, even though absolute power wise, I don't think it can be compared with Skyfall Sword, but I still will put it here just because I think it's a very nice addition to the finger, the other, the worst finger build, and I like the idea behind this, design idea behind it. Even though I would say, if the develop team once when it did, they already fixed this bug. You see that was a bug before, but they not fix the bug, but they still put this internal cooldown in it. Why do you do this? If you remove that cooldown, then this guy will work so much better with a zero cooldown fingers special skill at endgame, and then it just brings fingers power into another level, and I will have no problem to put it into A at all. And unlike now, I feel so much struggle to put it somewhere. Anyways, so that's everything for this video. So in the next video, we'll finish everything with the 12 elemental skills. So I will see you next time then.